We assume much of our life is a very linear thing. And I want to talk about what that actually means. And then I also want to talk about, what can you do to actually exploit some of this? So we believe that much of what we actually do is a one-to-one process, and it's a linear process. So what do I mean? The more that you actually do of something, the more that you're actually going to get out, right? So each time that you do a particular activity, each time that you do something that you find interesting, you're expecting to get equal amounts of reward out of that particular thing. It becomes very easy to see that there is an easy connection between doing something and getting that particular result back. And that is like, imagine as if you are, imagine you're playing the piano and you're playing the piano for 4 hours straight. Each time that you play the piano and each time that you practice a particular thing, you get a little better. And every time that you play those few notes, it gets a little better and a little better and a little better. And we have this sort of notion that that is how life actually works, in that you do something and you keep doing it and it gets a little better and it gets a little better and a little better and it gets remarkably better as you do this. And every time that you do it, you see this clear connection between these two things that you're doing. Now, the problem with this sort of linear incremental growth perspective is that much of life actually doesn't exist like that. Even within the metaphor of playing the piano, you might actually play the piano 100 times, and you're not going to get how to actually play that combination. And the way that you actually get that is you might play 100 times in one sitting, and you don't get it. And then you come back and you do that again in another setting, and you don't get it. And then by some chance, one day, you were relaxed, it was the right day, you had some fun, or maybe you were angry and you had an emotional attachment to playing that particular piece, and then you get it, and then you don't get it again for some time. And then after that, for some reason, you do this again and it comes easier and more natural. And pretty soon you actually can play that combination of musical notes. And what you see from this is that much of how life actually progresses is not a linear function, in that we do things repeatedly and we get equal rewards. I am reminded all of the time in my own career, I'm reminded all of the time with building this reciprocity project, the platform for non-rejectable research papers and grants, that nothing of this is linear. I might actually work on something. I might do so many different videos or podcasts or any of these kind of things, and nothing happens. I might have my developers, because I don't have time to do it, so I have developers work on something, and really nothing happens for a long time, or they get stuck on something, or they're working on a specific line of code and very little changes. And I'm reminded that all of a sudden, every once in a while, something just quantumly changes. And you never expect how that actually quantumly changes and why that happens or what that looks like. And it comes from out of nowhere. Almost always, that is my results in terms of how things actually happen, is that you're going along and you think that nothing is happening. You get a lot of despair. You feel that you're the only one that's believing that in this. You feel all of this sort of normal emotions that all of us go through, that you feel alone. You feel like a weirdo. You feel like a stranger. You feel all of those things, and then all of a sudden, for some reason, and it could be something weird, maybe Maybe you read something online, you read a newspaper article, maybe somebody reaches out to you that you didn't expect at all. And they reach out to you and all of a sudden something changes and everything clicks. And you might do something for an extremely long time where you don't believe that you're actually doing anything and you lose faith in yourself and you feel like you are the only one or a weirdo. And you feel like that all of the time. Or you feel like you can't play this particular piece and you're down in the dumps, or you're trying to write something, you can't communicate what you're trying to do. And all of a sudden, for some reason, maybe it's somebody that comes by, maybe it's a news event that happens in another place around the world, maybe there's a shift, maybe there is a war that goes on in another place, and all of a sudden somebody shifts. And you can never expect how any of this happens. You never know. There's nothing linear about this, where, in fact, most of the time when you're doing something, you're going to feel negative. You're going to feel like you're losing. You're going to feel that you're silly. You feel all of those things, and you talk negatively to yourself. You say, why am I doing this? This is silly. And for some reason, everything changes. And it often is from somebody that you don't expect. It's often from some source that you would never imagine. It could be negative, it could be positive. It's often in such a weird way that you would never understand why this actually happened in the first place. And those people that actually connect it, or those events that connect it, or that sequence that happens, nobody could ever explain why that actually happened in the way that they did, or it did. And I'm reminded of this repeatedly, almost all of the time, that we are actually in a state of imbalance, or we're in a state of things just weirdly happen that there's no explanation for, and there's no way that you can ever anticipate it. And so despite the fact that you might do something for a long time, there's this sort of famous saying that chance favors chance favors those that are most prepared, or something along those lines. But you just don't expect anything to actually happen. And I want you to go about your life thinking like that. And so what do? Right? Knowing that you can't anticipate anything, it's kind of a weird phenomenon. The only thing that you can do is do things because that you love it. Do things because that you believe for some reason are important. You do things because at one point, maybe somebody said, I believe in you, or maybe not. But there's these things that for no apparent reason, you do them, and nobody else can explain them. They make no sense to anybody else, but to you, they matter. And there's nothing strategic about it. There's no financial rewards, but you just do it. And I want you to think about that. Most of your life and how things happen, nobody's going to be able to explain them. Now, if you're young, you're not going to believe this. You're going to think that this is all kind of whack jobby kind of stuff. And I thought the same way. Now, if you're older, you're going to start seeing it. You're going to start seeing all of these weird things, but you're going to want to give up on yourself because you think you're too old. You're past your prime. You can't do any of those things. But the truth is you just don't know. And the only way that you can do things is to keep going every single day. And I encourage you to do that. Try things, pursue things for no apparent reason. Don't do things because you're being strategic. Do things because you love it. And I think that's the only way that you can actually make significant progress in your life, because you're never going to be able to explain it. Nobody's ever going to be able to tell you that it's simply just doing it over and over and over again, which I tell you a lot. But you can't explain that pattern. You can't match why somebody did something to how it actually happened. And I want you to remember that as you go about your day today. Do things because you love it. Smile as much as you possibly can and repeat. That's it. That's the only reason why we actually do things. The strategy of how this all works, and nobody knows how that actually works. You'll never be able to get that one-to-one relationship. And if it does work that way for you, you are some spectacular human being that I would like to meet. All right, take care and have a wonderful day.